Harmony Creek was a quiet town, the kind of place where everyone knew everyone else. Life in the town moved slowly, with each day looking much like the one before. Kids went to school, parents went to work, and the seasons came and went. But one day, something incredible happened. The famous rapper Snoop Dogg showed up at Harmony High School. Nobody could believe it. It was as if a superstar had fallen straight out of the sky and landed in their little town. That morning started like any other. The students were excited because it was Showcase Day, an annual event where kids showed off their talents and achievements. The gymnasium buzzed with energy as parents and teachers admired projects and performances. Trey, a quiet 13-year-old boy, sat in the corner of the room. He wasn't part of the excitement. For Trey, school was not a happy place. He loved writing poetry and songs, but most of his classmates made fun of him for it. They teased him, called him names, and left him out of everything. Trey dreamed of being a musician, but the constant bullying made him feel small and alone. Meanwhile, far away in Los Angeles, something extraordinary was happening. Trey's mom, Lisa, had shared his story on Instagram. She had written about how Trey was a kind, talented boy who loved music but was being bullied at school. She asked people to be kinder, hoping someone would listen. Her post caught fire online. Thousands of people liked and shared it, sending messages of support. One of those people was Snoop Dogg. When Snoop read Lisa's post, he felt a deep connection. It reminded him of his own struggles when he was younger. He thought about how hard it had been for him to chase his dreams. When people doubted him, he saw himself in Trey, a kid with big dreams, but no one to cheer him on. Snoop knew he had to do something. He cleared his schedule, hopped on a plane, and headed straight to Harmony Creek. When Snoop arrived at Harmony High School, the gym was packed. Parents were chatting, teachers were handing out awards, and kids were showing off their talents. Nobody noticed the tall man with braided hair and sunglasses walking through the doors. At least, not at first. Then someone gasped. "Is that Snoop Dogg?" they whispered. Heads turned. Conversations stopped. The room went quiet, as everyone realized it was really him. Snoop walked into the gym with his usual cool confidence. He smiled and waved, making his way to the principal, Mr. Henderson. The principal, who was just as shocked as everyone else, greeted him with a nervous laugh. "Mr. Dogg," he stammered, "what brings you to Harmony High?" "I'm here to meet someone special," Snoop said. His voice was calm and kind. "A kid named Trey." Gasps filled the room. Trey, who was sitting in the back, froze. He couldn't believe what he was hearing. Snoop Dogg, the world-famous rapper, was here to see him? His heart pounded in his chest. The kids around him stared, their eyes wide with shock. Mr. Henderson led Snoop to the stage at the front of the gym. By now, everyone in the room was on their feet, whispering and craning their necks to get a better look. Snoop stepped up to the microphone, adjusted it to his height, and looked out at the crowd. The room went silent. "Yo, Harmony High," Snoop began, his deep voice echoing through the gym. "I heard about this town, and I had to come see it for myself. I heard about all the talented, hard-working kids here. But there's one kid I really came to meet. His name is Trey." All eyes turned to Trey. He felt like he wanted to disappear, but at the same time, he couldn't help but feel a spark of excitement. Snoop Dogg, his hero, was talking about him. "Trey," Snoop continued, "I heard you love music. I heard you're a poet. And I heard some people been messing with you, trying to make you feel like you're not good enough. Well, let me tell you something, my man. You are good enough. You've got a gift. And when you've got a gift, you don't let anybody take it from you. Trey's eyes filled with tears. He couldn't believe what he was hearing. The kids who had laughed at him, the ones who had called him names, they were all listening too. For the first time, he felt seen. Snoop kept talking, his voice filled with emotion. When I was your age, I had dreams too. Big dreams. But not everyone believed in me. Some people laughed at me, just like they laugh at you. But you know what I did? I kept going. I didn't let the haters stop me, and I don't want you to let them stop you either. The crowd erupted into applause. Parents cheered. Teachers clapped. Even the kids who had teased Trey were now looking at him with something like respect. Snoop wasn't done. Trey, I want to hear what you've got. You got a poem for us? A song? I want you to share it with the world. Trey's heart raced. He had written a poem just last week, but he never thought anyone would want to hear it. Now, Snoop Dogg himself was asking him to perform. Slowly, Trey stood up. His legs felt like jelly as he walked to the front of the gym. Snoop smiled at him, giving him a fist bump before stepping aside to let Trey take the mic. Trey looked out at the sea of faces. His hands shook as he unfolded the piece of paper in his pocket. Taking a deep breath, he began to read. His voice was soft at first, but as the words flowed, he grew more confident. The poem was about his dreams, his struggles, and his determination to keep going no matter what. By the time he finished, the room was completely silent. Then, as if on cue, the crowd erupted into cheers. Snoop clapped the loudest. "That's what I'm talking about," he said, pulling Trey into a hug. "You're a star, man. Don't ever forget that." For Trey, the moment felt like a dream. But it wasn't a dream, it was real. Snoop Dogg had come all the way to Harmony High to tell him he mattered, to tell him he was special. And for the first time in a long time, Trey believed it. For Trey, everything felt different now. It wasn't just the applause or the cheers, it was the way people looked at him. For the first time, Trey didn't feel invisible. He didn't feel like a joke. Snoop Dogg's words had lit a fire in his heart, and it burned brighter than the fear and sadness he'd carried for so long. After the performance, Snoop leaned down to Trey, his voice low and steady. "That was powerful, man. You've got something special. I mean it." Trey nodded, his heart racing. Snoop handed him a card with his contact information. "Hit me up, all right? I want you to come to LA. I'll show you the studio, let you see how the magic happens. And maybe, just maybe, you can drop some of that fire in a track." Trey stared at the card in disbelief. "Really? You mean it?" Snoop smiled. "I don't say things I don't mean, kid." As the event wound down, parents and teachers flocked to Snoop, thanking him for coming and shaking his hand. Trey stood off to the side, watching the scene unfold. He still couldn't believe it. Kids who used to ignore him now approached him, their faces filled with curiosity and respect. "That was cool, Trey," said Sam, one of the boys who had teased him in the past. "I didn't know you could do that." Trey didn't know how to respond. Was this real? Were these kids finally seeing him for who he was? The news of Snoop Dogg's visit spread like wildfire. By the next morning, the story was in the local papers and all over social media. "Snoop Dogg surprises Harmony High School to support bullied teen," read one headline. Pictures of Trey on stage, reading his poem while Snoop clapped in the background, went viral. At school, Trey noticed the difference immediately. The same kids who had once laughed at him now greeted him in the hallways. Some apologized for the way they had treated him. Others simply said hi. their smiles warm and genuine. It felt strange, but it also felt good. For the first time, Trey walked into school without the weight of fear pressing on his chest. The teachers also took notice. Mrs. Riley, his English teacher, approached him after class one day. "Trey," she said, her voice kind, "I always knew you had talent, but hearing you perform that poem, it was incredible. Have you thought about entering the regional poetry contest? I think you'd do great." Trey hesitated. "I don't know. What if I mess up?" Mrs. Riley smiled. "What if you don't? You've already shown everyone how brave you are. I believe in you, and so does the whole school now. Give it a shot." For the first time, Trey felt like maybe, just maybe, he could do it. 2 weeks later, Trey's life changed again. True to his word, Snoop Dogg stayed in touch. One sunny afternoon, Trey and his mom received a call from an unfamiliar number. Lisa answered, and her eyes lit up as she recognized the voice on the other end. "Trey," she whispered, holding out the phone. "It's him." Trey took the phone, his hands trembling. "Hello? Yo, Trey, it's Snoop Dogg. How you doing, little man?" Trey's face broke into a grin. "I'm good, Mr. Dogg. How are you?" Snoop chuckled. "Man, just call me Snoop. Anyway, I got something for you. How'd you like to come out to LA next weekend? I got a studio session lined up, and I want you to see how it all works. Maybe even spit a verse or two. What do you say?" Trey was speechless. He looked at his mom, who nodded, tears of pride in her eyes. "I'd love to," he finally managed to say. "Good. I'll have my team send you all the details. Pack your bags, little homie. We're about to make some magic." The trip to Los Angeles was a whirlwind. For Trey, everything felt like a dream come true. Snoop's team arranged for Trey and his mom to fly out and stay in a nice hotel. When they arrived at the studio, Trey's eyes widened. The equipment, the soundproof rooms, the people working behind the scenes, it was everything he had imagined and more. Snoop greeted them warmly, giving Trey a quick tour of the space. "This is where it all happens," he said, gesturing to the mixing board and microphones. "This is where dreams turn into reality." Trey got to sit in on a recording session, watching as Snoop laid down vocals for a new track. Then, to his amazement, Snoop invited him into the booth. "Your turn, Trey. Show me what you've got." Trey's hands shook as he put on the headphones, but Snoop's encouraging smile calmed his nerves. He closed his eyes and began to recite one of his poems. The words flowed naturally, blending with the beat playing in the background. When he finished, the room was silent for a moment before erupting in applause. "That was fire," Snoopy said, giving Trey a high five. "We're putting that on the track." Trey's visit to LA wasn't just about recording music. Snoop spent time mentoring him, sharing stories of his own struggles and teaching him how to stay grounded. "It's not just about talent," Snoop told him. "It's about heart, too. You've got both. Now go out there and show the world." When Trey returned to Harmony Creek, he was a changed person. He walked taller, smiled more, and believed in himself like never before. The track he had recorded with Snoop was released online, and it quickly gained attention. Trey's story inspired people across the country, proving that even in the face of bullying and doubt, dreams can come true. Trey's life wasn't perfect, but it was filled with hope. The bullying stopped, replaced by admiration and support. He continued writing poetry, performing at school events, and dreaming big. And whenever he doubted himself, he remembered Snoop's words, "Don't let anyone dim your shine." For Trey, the journey wasn't just about music or fame. It was about finding his voice, standing tall, and showing the world who he truly was. And thanks to a little kindness from a big-hearted rapper, Trey's future was brighter than ever. As Trey settled back into life in Harmony Creek, the transformation was undeniable. His newfound confidence inspired not only himself, but everyone around him. Trey became more than just the kid Snoop Dogg visited. He became a symbol of resilience and hope in the community. Trey's poetry began to take on new themes. Where once he wrote about pain and isolation, his words now carried messages of strength, perseverance, and kindness. He started performing regularly at school assemblies, community events, and even at local cafes. Each time, he spoke directly from the heart, his voice steady and strong. One evening, during a town fundraiser, Trey stood on stage and recited a new poem titled The Ripple. It was about how one act of kindness, no matter how small, could spread far and wide, touching lives in ways we may never know. The audience gave him a standing ovation, their faces glowing with pride and inspiration. The effects of Snoop Dogg's Sipitu's visit rippled through the entire town. The kids at Harmony High who once mocked Trey had a change of heart. Many of them reached out to apologize, and a few even asked Trey for advice on how to pursue their own creative dreams. The school, inspired by Trey's story, implemented anti-bullying programs and began celebrating students' unique talents through monthly Show Your Shine events. Even the parents and teachers noticed the shift. The once quiet Trey had become a leader, a young boy who inspired others to treat each other with kindness and respect. Months later, Trey received a package in the mail. It was from Snoop Dogg. Inside, there was a framed platinum record of the song they had collaborated on, along with a handwritten note. "Yo, Trey, you did that, little homie. This is just the beginning. Keep writing, keep dreaming, and keep shining. I'm always here if you need me. Remember, never let anyone dim your light." One love, Snoop Trey hung the record on his wall, staring at it every day as a reminder of how far he had come. As Trey grew older, his passion for writing and performing only deepened. With encouragement from his mom, teachers, and even Snoop himself, Trey applied to a prestigious performing arts school. His acceptance letter arrived on a sunny afternoon, and when Trey read the words, he felt the same spark of hope he'd felt that day in the gymnasium. On his first day at the new school, Trey carried a notebook filled with his poems and a heart full of gratitude. He walked in knowing he belonged, his voice strong and his dreams alive. Years later, Trey would look back on that pivotal moment, when everything changed. It wasn't just Snoop Dogg's visit or the applause in the gym. It was the realization that one person's kindness, one person's belief in him, could light a fire that would never burn out. Trey went on to become a celebrated poet and musician, using his platform to advocate for bullied kids and encourage creativity in young people. He often spoke about Snoop Dogg's impact on his life, sharing the story of how one act of compassion had turned his world around. And back in Harmony Creek, the town that had once felt small and ordinary now carried a special kind of magic. The kind that reminded everyone that even the smallest ripple could grow into a wave of change. For Trey, the journey had started with pain and loneliness, but ended in purpose and joy. He had learned to stand tall, to believe in himself, and to share his gift with the world. And it all began because someone cared enough to show him that he mattered. Because kindness isn't just a gesture, it's a legacy.